Hi, my name is Dwayne Gathers, and welcome to Civitas LA, featuring diverse and emerging leaders who make up this dynamic region and are creating community every day and building a better tomorrow. These bi-weekly conversations truly enable us to hear from, learn from, and be inspired by a new generation of civic entrepreneurs who are forging a path forward in making our region a stronger, more resilient, and connected group of citizens. Our goal is to elevate civic discourse, foster community connections, and promote civic knowledge and engagement across the greater Los Angeles region while elevating diverse and emerging voices in that conversations. From a great report from Multiteria that I read entitled, Why Restaurants Are Important to Local Economies. In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, restaurants are challenged as patrons shelter in place and local regulations ban many dining rooms from reopening. While restaurants have certainly demonstrated the adaptability required as they've pivoted to curbside service and delivery, there's no doubting the importance of in-person dining both to our community psyche and our local economies. For starters, a recent report stated that says, of all things consumers want to do in a post-pandemic world, actually, going to a restaurant is the top item. And in fact, 62% of all respondents indicated this is the first thing they'll do. And while restaurants are great for our collective psyche, they're also great for the local economy. And here in Los Angeles, if you've listened to Civitas LA, episode 51 in particular, we note that we've got over 30,000 restaurants here in our midst. So as we consider the role restaurants play in our respective communities, the local economic impact of restaurants, and as we celebrate Dine LA Week, we are delighted to have here in studio today with us three restaurateurs of note. Robert Schwan, Jelena, located out in Venice, Nora Houndalas, Le Petit Greek, located in Larchmont, and newer to the restaurant scene, we don't know why, but we're going to hear soon, Claire Risoli of PochaLA in Highland Park. Claire, Nora, Robert, welcome to Civitas LA.
Thank you.
Wonderful to have the three of you here, and you're making me hungry already. So, Nora, Claire, and Robert on Civitas LA, and Robert, welcome back to Civitas LA. We had you on when we had a Community Spotlight Venice. We always appreciate our guests offering a self-introduction. So chivalry is never dead, so ladies first. Claire.
Aha. Good morning. My name is Claire Risoli, and I am the owner and founder of PochaLA Los Angeles in Highland Park. I'm from LA. I almost feel like I don't qualify to be here, although I've learned a lot. Crash course over the last 2 years. I'm new to the restaurant world in terms of being an owner and on the operations side. I've worked in restaurants growing up, and I was really inspired by the two guys, Rick and Larry, that started California Pizza Kitchen.
Oh, excellent.
And I'll talk a little bit about that later. But this has been something that was on my vision board for many years and decided to open the doors in April 2020. Actually
Wonderful.
Signed our lease February 2020. And then it's been a wild ride. So
excellent.
I'm looking forward to sharing.
Well, we're looking forward to learning more since you opened up April 2020. Wow.
Mm.
Nora, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm Nora Houndalas, Le Petit Greek restaurant. We are in Larchmont Boulevard in the historic Larchmont Village. We're the oldest restaurant there. We will be 34 years there this May. I run that with my husband, Dimitri. This is really his baby. I do the back end, so he's the face of the restaurant and the heart and soul. Dimitri's from Nafplion, Greece, grew up in the restaurant business in Greece. And his family has a long history of restaurants in the United States as well.
Wonderful. Robert Schwan, welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Robert Schwan, and I've lived and worked in Venice for 40-plus years with my wife Barbara and my son Kyle. And most recently I was one of the founding partners of Jelena in Venice, but have kind of grown my career over the 40 years in Los Angeles as the restaurant business kind of evolved. My career kind of evolved with it.
Excellent.
Through various great establishments.
Nice. Well, there was an article that I read over the holidays in The Economist entitled The Pleasures of the Table. It was really terrific. And in it noted that people have long feasted outside the home, archaeologists have counted 158 snack bars in Pompeii, and that ready-cooked meat and fish and game were available to Londoners at least in the 1170s. And in the U.S., Sam Cole, early settler, is believed to have opened the first tavern in Boston in 1634. So, Nora, you mentioned that your husband's family goes way back in the restaurant business. But, how long has your family been in the restaurant business? How did you get your start here in L.A.?
Well, my husband and his brother Thomas grew up in their father's restaurant in Nafthleon, Greece. And he had different restaurants at different time with his uncle and or his brother, my husband's uncle, that seated, one of the restaurants seated 1,000 people.
Wow.
So it was like huge, but all like in the way that Greece is kind of indoor-outdoor dining. So he grew up there. It's almost like it becomes your profession because you know it, because he was a classical guitarist, but he worked in the restaurant, and that's it. His brother Thomas came to America first and had opened, was working downtown at the Jonathan Club, and then wanted to open his own place. As soon as he opened it, he said to Dimitri, "Get here, I need your help." That was the beginning of it. But his grandfather had come here in the early 1900 to San Francisco. There's an area of a lot of Greeks. They're trying to have it called like a Greek culture area along the water where a lot of Greeks came and opened a restaurant. He opened a restaurant called the Cliff Cafe down the road from the infamous Cliff House, which unfortunately closed during the pandemic. You're talking about hundreds of years old. It was run by my husband's cousin, Dan Houndalas. So there's a lot of Greek restaurants up there. We still have family that stayed up there. My husband's grandfather was in the United States for 27 years. He returned to Greece. There was so much destruction after civil unrest and World War, that when he decided to stay, he was the only family member that had come to America that went back to stay. And so that's why my husband is from Greece. Otherwise, he has all these cousins here in the United States. But that whole lineage and photos of these of the original Cliff Cafe and his family here running that goes way back.
Now, Mr. Swan, I know you've been around for a while, so share with us all the iterations of your various ventures.
Oh, that'd take a while, but I started. I actually started in the restaurant business at the Sidewalk Cafe.
Oh,
all
here in
those
LA?
years ago on Venice Beach.
Okay.
And just to give you an idea,
did you have a permit?
How long ago? Waiting tables there were waiters that waited tables with roller skates.
Okay.
Which is very Venice. But I ended up. They gave me the keys eventually. I ended up managing, and I just continued managing restaurants. Throughout that time, all around. I mean, Angeli was a place. Ivy, one of the Ivy at the Shore I managed for a while. 72 Market Street Restaurant. Chaya.
Oh, right.
Venice.
Chaya Venice, yeah.
So, and I had a nightclub for a while on Santa Monica Pier, Arcadia, and on it went until I ended up getting involved in Jelena. Which opened when? Jelena opened in 2008.
Okay.
And the founder of Jelena, Franz Samai, it's named after his mother, Jelena, and it's an Albanian name. And the bakery now, Justa, is named after his mother's sister, his aunt.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so I actually, there was a place, Wabi Sabi, and I went from Wabi Sabi on Abbot Kinney, the original Wabi Sabi, to Jelena.
Okay, excellent. And Claire, you're new to this, so
Yes.
You said you've worked in restaurants, but
I
this is
have.
your first venture. So how did you get to this point?
First of all, I just want to say I'm fascinated with the rich history of both of you. I was a server at California Pizza Kitchen in my late teens and 20s. I worked there for 10 years. I was a server trainer as well, helped open up some new locations. This is when California Pizza Kitchen really started expanding. When I started working for them, it was just a couple locations, and now there's hundreds, and they sold it. But I was always fascinated with what Rick and Larry created. They were two, lawyers from Beverly Hills. They didn't have, much like myself, experience in the restaurant business, although they did have a lot of, support and put the right people in place to make it happen. But I was always just inspired by what they created, and I feel like I've reinvented myself so many times in my short life. I've had several careers, and I get these ideas and I put them on my vision board, and I'm just someone that's crazy enough to go after it. So Pocha came about. Actually, the word Pocha means Americanized Mexican girl.
Okay.
It was something that I hated being called when growing up. Made me always feel like I wasn't, like Mexican enough, or I wasn't enough. To me, it just, was brought out a lot of not enoughness. And just growing up in LA, I met a lot of other pochas that we started, embracing the word and embracing the culture. So I knew that I wanted to start a brand and create a brand, much like Rick and Larry did, around this word called pocha. And I love food. I love the experience. That's what I always say. I always spend my money on experiences. I love the way that food brings us back. It creates, it makes it. We gather. So I chose to build the brand around a food concept and just jumped in like I do, not knowing what the heck I'm doing, and everything is figure-outable. So I'm still in the figure-outing stage of things, but I'm still here.
We've got two great guests. So that's a great point that you mentioned in terms of restaurants as a gathering spot. And, and Robert, when we had you on for episode 38, Community Spotlight Venice, I remember one of the comments that you made was, the joy you found in the restaurant business because of it brought you into the community, being part of that community. So that really stuck with us, and thus this episode. So I'm curious to hear from each of you your perspectives on the role that restaurants play in fostering community and how you seek to position your restaurant or how your restaurant has positioned as a place within community. And I know, Larchmont, we had a community spotlight Larchmont, and it's a very tight community. So I'm curious to hear from you first, Nora.
Well, I think restaurants are a huge part of community. For a lot of reasons. Anywhere you go, this is the gathering spot where people come to gather with loved ones, right? Whether it's, even together with friends. But when your restaurant is embedded in a neighborhood, you become part of that neighborhood, and this becomes your extended family and your friends. And, even though our restaurants are still struggling to be thrive again, you saw that how much you loved your community. We've done baptisms, we've done funerals, we've done bar mitzvahs, we've done memorials, we've done weddings, engagements. Being part of people's lives like that, it blows you away. And I remember the first day that we could open and have people inside again, this guy came with his wife at the time, and he said, "It's my wife's birthday. I'm coming. There's going to be 6 of us. I want you to know that this was the first place I took her for the first date, And it's just like, it gets you, Yeah. So you become so involved with everybody's lives, and you truly, truly care about them. And that's what you saw during the pandemic come back at you. You saw the whole neighborhood, and even beyond, your patrons, even if they're traveling from further distance, just come back and engage you and support you and just cradle you through this process, not only with their patronage, but with their words and stopping by and checking on you. So, this is important, especially in a city like LA that's not vertical, that's very spread out, that so many people come from other parts of the world and other parts of this country to live. So getting, connected is a little different, where, in the Midwest, you might know all of your neighbors. You move to LA, you don't. And so really having like little neighborhood communities where you can gather is really crucially important to have a sense of connection and community.
Yeah. And Claire, you're in Highland Park, so you're new, and you started right as the pandemic happened. So we were going to lockdown. So what's been the impact in terms of your restaurant and how you hope to embed yourself in this particular community, which is an interesting one. We're going to ask the next question about.
So we signed our lease February 2020, and around the end of February, beginning of March, started hearing about this thing called coronavirus, and I remember thinking like, oh well, that's over there. Like I don't know, it just does something that doesn't seem to happen here. And then mid-March, so was the shutdown, and I remember not sleeping for a few weeks, thinking, how are we going to survive this 3-week shutdown? How are we going to do our grand? How are we going to open? And how are we going to survive? Well, the story, 3 weeks turned into 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
And the way that we survived, I think, A, God's grace, B, the community. The community literally carried us on their backs. Like brings me to tears. The community was rooting for us, and it was a really scary position to be in, not because I felt like, yes, that I was going to lose it all, but we had taken over a space that was a restaurant for 30, 40 years. Like, it was a landmark in that community. And there was a lot of fear of, we're not that same place. We're a different concept. We don't have brand equity. Nobody knows who we are. How are we going to wow the neighbors? And they gave us a shot. And they were really forgiving because we weren't on point. We didn't have it together. We didn't knock it out of the park. We were figuring stuff out, and we're, like I said, still figuring stuff out. But it was really the community that carried us. But now that we're open and we have, that we had patio dining and we have indoor dining, what I envisioned for this particular community, Highland Park, it's a community where there tends to be two distinctively different demographics. The first is, predominantly Hispanic, and the second demographic is like the sort of the newer creative professionals that are moving in. So we have these two distinctive demographics. My vision I see being realized is bringing these two communities together. And on any given day, you can see, a Spanish dominant family and a new, a newer family to the community. So it's really beautiful to see that, we are really bringing the community together, because there's not a lot of places in Highland Park that really cater to both. We have mariachi, it is rooted in tradition, so it's traditional Mexican food, but we also are catering to the modern food trends and people that are looking for more plant-based options. So it was a tricky way to sort of merge the worlds, but I'm really proud of us and how we've been able to do that.
I'm curious to you mentioned plant-based. So I'm curious with these two distinctive communities, how that has impacted your menu choices and decisions.
Well, there's, when I say rooted in tradition, I think a lot of the Mexican food that's out there, we don't realize that it's not really traditional. It's very Americanized, which is kind of funny, because Pocha, the Americanized Mexican girl, is actually serving really traditional Mexican food. Okay. And traditional Mexican food, like, there's no such thing. I remember, growing up, like, there was no such thing where my mom grew up called organic. Like, she grew up on a ranch. Everything was organic. It's, fresh fruits and vegetables, and we do have, obviously, options for carnivores,
right?
But
right.
it wasn't. Me too. But it wasn't hard, and it's interesting because even the carnivores are trying some of the plant-based options.
Well, that's a great segue as you talk about these two different communities, and of course we know Highland Park is one of those changing demographics as well. So that as we have listeners all over the country and all over the world, let's talk about your respective communities. Particularly, give us an insight on Venice and in your operating environment for these last 4 decades.
Okay, can I make an addendum to my introduction first?
Absolutely.
So I failed to mention my wife and I were opening partners of the Tasting Kitchen.
Oh, excellent.
In Venice, and I didn't want to leave them out.
Okay, we love the Tasting Kitchen. Okay.
In terms of our impact in the community?
Yeah, impact on community and also, the ever-changing nature of the community in which you operate, Venice, because, I think we talked about last time, some years ago, probably when you opened Jelena, Venice was like the hottest community, or Abbot Kinney was the hottest street in the country.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting, we came in kind of the brasserie style of restaurant, where there was, something for everyone, salads, pizza, a lot of fresh vegetables, and we think you really came up with a way that people want to eat these days, more vegetable based, more olive oil, less butter, just a fresher, I would say healthier way of eating, but in a brasserie setting. Yeah. I think a lot of restaurants now open with communal tables. And I think that's something that's changed in terms of bringing people more together and eating and making a space feel more communal, and more options for diners. You have to just sit at a table. You can sit at a communal table. Right. In terms of how it impacts the community, I think sometimes people see, when restaurants are successful, they see you, or they lump you with gentrifiers. Okay. But I don't know anybody who's opened a restaurant who thought of themselves that way. You just open something in the community, and people come and they gather. And particularly in a neighborhood like Venice, there's many different types of people still. and it serves a lot of parts of the neighborhood, a lot of sectors of the community.
Yeah, yeah. Nora, we just had a community spotlight a number earlier this year on Larchmont, so we're not going to rehash how wonderful Larchmont is because it's my neighborhood as well. But share with us, that particular community, what it means to you, and how did you all decide to locate there versus elsewhere in this region?
Well, it's one of LA's so spread out, and you don't have a lot of walking areas. So it's one of the few areas where you can actually walk up and down. And it's also one of the few areas where you had like individually owned. I mean, it's kind of the crisis going on with Larchmont right now, but where how is this going to change as prices go up? But where you could walk up and down and see individually owned restaurants and individually owned shops. So you weren't like in another mall setting. And it was outdoors, which was, lovely and in a beautiful neighborhood. But the Larchmont community, has really grown. It's not just the people who live in the neighborhood, Hancock Park, Windsor Square. It's Hollywood. It's Koreatown. It's, it becomes a destination. You're close to the studios with Paramount around the corner and Raleigh Studios. So it becomes this destination for people to come. You see that. You can see it's more destination kind of a place now. But, you want a place where people can gather and a place where people can commune and talk and it is a wonderful. I won't go on too much about it because I love it so much and I can go on forever. But it's a wonderful, very supportive, very engaged community, civically, politically, all the important issues. The community is very engaged.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to ask you about that in terms of, restaurants are such pillars of their local community. But as your restaurants have evolved, is your audience hyper local or is it now regional? Venice obviously has a national audience. So are you local or regional?
We get people from all over the world, locally, a lot, people traveling. So I would say we get everyone.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, Venice is certainly a draw. Claire, how is your restaurant evolving in terms of local versus a regional?
I would say more local, but we do attract some regional, and they usually come for the mariachi brunch or for the full experience.
Okay, we have to highlight that.
Well, I just want to add, because we're at Venice Beach. Venice Beach is,
isn't
it the number one? One of the number one attractions.
Certainly one of the top.
Los Angeles.
Hollywood sign, Walk of Fame,
right.
Griffith Park. Venice, for sure. And Nora, you just mentioned that obviously, Larchmont now has, is a destination.
It is a destination, and the BID is working hard to make it that more. I mean, the majority of your support is local or within bordering local communities, but you've seen it grown. And, if you're in this business, you have to be adaptable.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty, to see, the restaurant grow with different types of patrons. And, we used to never have kids. Now it's tons of families,
right.
To see the Korean community, maybe when, Koreatown was smaller, not want to kind of like venture in because maybe their English wasn't great. And now, we're just having the best time with the Korean community. And just to see, the LGBTQ community, it's just grown, and it's grown. You do find people coming from out of the country even.
Yeah.
And I think that happens too, like, especially when you have an ethnic restaurant, they might like, oh, I know Greek food, or I've been to Greece, or, I love Mexican food, or whatever that is. They have this kind of thing in their mind, and then they come and then they feel like they met a friend.
Right.
And I think that's the nicest thing, because your supporters are your local people. And then, restaurants have small profit margins, so you need the extras. You need the people who are traveling in from further communities or who are on vacation. And I like when they leave and they go back and go, I made a friend in LA.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Well, restaurants are very involved in community. Share with us how your restaurant is involved in your community. I know, Robert, you talked about obviously your work with the Art Walk and Venice Family Clinic. How's Jolena involved in community out in Venice?
Well, Jolena has a GVP program, the Jolena Volunteer Program.
Okay.
And an example of something we did with GVP is they did cooking classes at Venice High.
Oh, right. Okay.
Which were amazing. It was an amazing experience, and it was really well attended. And,
that's great.
And the students loved it, and I think learned a lot. So that's just an example. And GVP is working on a lot of other stuff in the community.
Yeah. Okay. Claire, how are you? You're busy getting up and running, so you may not have the bandwidth at this time.
Not so much.
How are you involving the restaurant in the life of the community?
Well, we have been able to support some of the local filmmakers. There's a couple film schools nearby, and we've been able to donate food to the crew. We also there's a lot of the elementary. Middle schools around that, different fundraisers that we've been able to participate in as well. So we're just learning,
Sure.
how to expand and how to become more a bigger part of the community and to
It takes
help.
the process. Nora?
Yeah, the schools are a big one. They ask for donations. Most schools, public and private, ask for donations all the time. A lot of charities, different, will come to you and ask for donations. And there's so many. Sometimes at like a point we would be like, oh, we have to
Sure.
limit it. But also supporting the local, firefighters, engaging in different shelters. And that's one of the beautiful things that happened over COVID is that our customers came to us and said, we want to support, healthcare workers and first responders, but we want to support you, so we're going to pay you to feed them. And it was this full circle. And one of the events that Larchmont does every year is a taste of Larchmont, which is HopeNet, which services like 13 food pantries. And during the course of the pandemic, they turned it around and bought gift cards from us to auction off, as opposed to us feeding them. But it's such a beautiful, wonderful contribution. So we really do look at the different charitable organizations in our area, what issues call upon us. The homeless issue is probably the biggest crisis that we're seeing,
Sure.
which is really drug addiction and mental illness, the local schools, things like that. And that's where we try to contribute, gift cards or meals for auctions, things like that.
Well, you talked about the response that you received during COVID from so many who want to support you. So let's talk about the pandemic, and hopefully we are moving beyond Omicron. So, it may be too early to talk about lessons learned because maybe we're not done with it yet. But I'm just curious to get your perspective on what lessons have you learned and how do you see your business evolving post-pandemic? Robert, you want to start with that?
Well, I think one thing that was emphasized was, how grateful you are for your staff, how amazing they are. If you didn't know it before, boy, you know it now. Yeah. That they kept showing, and even, when it was a difficult situation, difficult, as you guys know, from the viewpoint of all the protocol, with sanitizing things and, all the precautions that were necessary was so challenging them. And then just, the risk to their own health of showing up in a public situation again with all the protocol. So I think that appreciation, the ever greater appreciation for your staff and their, their efforts and that situation really was something
great.
that impressed me.
Yeah.
And I was very thankful for them.
Nora, what lessons have you and your team taken from
there's
these
a
last
lot,
2
and we
years?
are still learning because we're still recovering. I mean, one of the things we had already known, just because we're a long-time restaurant, is that you have to learn to adapt to the moment, and to the needs of the way not only the way people eat and stuff like that, but I think. You touching on what Robert said, it's realizing, it's your staff, it's everyone. You realize that this is like a machine that has many components. And if one is not working, it doesn't work at all. A restaurant is a juggling act. If food doesn't get delivered, if someone's out sick, if a party cancels, this is, the make or break for restaurants. And so you realized how much you appreciated, your staff, your customers, your vendors, your repair people, your landlords, the people who let you pay them a little later, It just, you realize that it's not you. It's our restaurant, my husband Dimitri and I's restaurant, but it's not us, it's everybody, and everybody really is part of it. And if you can't be humble enough to see that, you'll lose it.
Yep.
Claire, please add to this.
So all I know is having a restaurant during a pandemic.
Right.
That's all I know.
So you're going to be a best-selling author next because you're going to write the book on it.
It's already in the works, yeah. Being nimble, resilient, disciplining my disappointments. Also, I came into this, I say, with no experience. I mean, I did have server experience, never had back of the house experience, never worked on the line. To speaking to, the employees and the appreciation for what they do. I know I'm a line cook. I'm a prep cook. I'm a dishwasher. I'm a server. I'm a busboy. I do payroll. I know how to, at any given moment, if somebody doesn't show up, I can step in.
Wow.
So I couldn't say that when I didn't even know how to order food. I didn't know PARs. I didn't know where to order food. I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know recipes. I had a business partner when I first started. She was responsible for the menu and the recipes. I wasn't left with any of that. So I know how to do it all.
Okay. That's wonderful. That's amazing. Well, I think we touched on this a little bit ago, but I really want to explore this, and that is on a number of episodes that we've had, including Community Spotlight, Venice, and Larchmont. We talked about the evolution of communities themselves, and sometimes when they become hot, there's this downside fear of gentrification and displacement. And we've had this come up a number of times with respect to residential displacement, but also what we've heard recently is also, the commercial displacement element, particularly as neighborhoods become hot and you get more institutional investors and the price of, the rents go up in neighborhoods. So how is this playing out in your respective communities, particularly over in Highland Park? I'm curious.
I'm not sure I can answer that question. Where we're located, it's still in a residential neighborhood, which I love because there's beautiful walkability.
Okay.
There are not a lot of institutions that have come up there yet. It's still very locally owned, mom and pop.
Okay.
I do see that changing, and I can definitely feel the pushback of that coming on.
Yep.
But I think for the most part, right now we're still there's still a very boutique feel to Highland Park right now.
Well, clearly that's changing over in Larchmont, and I'm, anxiously anticipating what this high-end Holy Grail donut place is going to be like on Larchmont when it opens up from Hawaii.
From Hawaii.
So, we're starting to see the institutions show up. Nora, give us some thoughts on that.
Look, there's room for everybody. It's we don't want to be us against them, but when Larchmont started, you had people who owned the properties that were living in the neighborhood, invested in the neighborhood. Once you lose that, and as you said, you get these big commercial realtors and becomes institutionalized. Their emotional engagement in the neighborhood is less, so they don't care. It's all about the profits, and that's really the biggest issue that Larchmont faces. And you can see it with the number of businesses, even long-term businesses like picket fences that closed,
Sure.
and it's heartbreaking. I mean, look, everything has its course that it has to run, but it's heartbreaking to see it. So, I'm looking to see what's going to happen to Larchmont too. We talk a lot to the other business owners. We engage with them. We also support them. That's where we shop. That's where we eat. That's where we try to keep it. But in the end, if you don't own the property, there's very little you can do about it. And so you will see. That's why there is so many vacancies on Larchmont. That's where we don't know what's going to happen to it. But we hope that some of these real estate developers and owners realize the importance of small businesses and individually owned restaurants, because restaurants are the second largest employer in the United States.
Right.
And we have enough malls and enough corporate places. We need individuality.
Yeah. Well, I love the term, the emotional investment that's made by the locally owned restaurant owners and property owners. Robert, you've seen this play out over the last 4 decades. Share some thoughts on this.
Well, that discussion's gone on for the whole 40 years. Yeah. I've been in Venice, and it's just forever changing. And I think, the last place now is along the boardwalk in Windward in Venice, where there's a lot of new businesses coming in and restaurants and bars. And I think it's ever more expensive to launch those businesses for every reason. Yeah. I will say that I think people are doing a lot of good work. When I go into a lot of the new places, they're really well done, and what they're offering is very good.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, the other discussion regarding gentrification is, that's a bigger discussion. I would want to do it justice, but as these communities change, of course, you hope they remain diverse, because that's the real emotional quality of them. And you hope that working class people can, stay there. Now, this is a local conversation, a national conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a global conversation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, that's...
Yeah. So, Nora, you mentioned, supporting local businesses and, shopping there, eating there. So let's talk about your restaurants. How often do you eat at your own restaurant?
Well, I probably eat from there every day.
Every day, okay. Every
just
day.
like pick up something and bring it home, or what have you,
Every day,
But I do. I used to go in more often to sit down and eat. I've done that less over the pandemic. I think just because it's always on my mind and I needed a respite from it. So
Do you have like Nora's table there in the corner?
I sit in the corner,
Hold court.
talk to the guys. I love our staff. I really do think we have like the greatest staff. But some of them have been with us, over 20 years.
Wow,
so.
that's amazing.
But yeah, just like you sit in the corner and but everybody knows you, so they come in and talk to you. So sometimes you just need to take it home because
Right.
you need a little private time to process.
And share with us what are your favorite items on your own menu?
So hard. I can tell you.
Give me one or two. Give me one or
well,
two.
lamb shanks, arnikotsi in Greek. This is, one of the most popular dishes because it's braised very slowly for like 4 hours in the oven with fresh tomatoes and red wine. So it's very tender, just falls off the bone.
Okay.
This is absolute favorite. And then people like their traditional things like moussaka, which is a traditional casserole dish. It's layers of potatoes, eggplant, zucchini, seasoned ground beef, and a bechamel sauce. But everybody's different. I love our spanakopita. I love our hummus. A lot of people come in for the salads, but I'd say when you're looking at traditional stuff that people go, oh, let's go to the Greek, they'll say, oh, let's get a shank and let's get a moussaka.
Then I am the odd man out because I go to Le Petit Greek and I have the Scottish salmon. So
It's the best. I eat it too.
that's my Robert. You've been in the game a long time. How often do you eat your own restaurants, and give us some favorite items off the menu?
I eat them all the time.
Okay.
I could, eat at Jelena every day.
Okay.
Jelena always has something I want.
Okay.
And just last night, I had a great dinner at the Tasting Kitchen. At Jelena, right now, I'd say the Japanese sweet potatoes with jalapeno and yogurt. And then
My
roasted
gosh.
Romanesco with capers, and
Wow.
the crispy duck confit with roasted turnips. Tasting Kitchen, I love the tagliarini with shrimp and serrano peppers.
Okay.
And then Hatchet Hall, which I'm just involved in a small way. They have amazing food. Roasted okra king salmon.
And where's Hatchet Hall?
Hatchet Hall is just outside of Venice.
That's okay. Interesting.
West LA, we'd call it. Mar Vista.
Yep. Got it.
Mar Vista.
Got it. Claire, you're the bookkeeper, you're the dishwasher, the prep cook, so you don't leave. So, how often do you eat at your own restaurant? And we'll give us some of your favorite menus.
Well, a girl's got to eat, and she's there all day. So,
Give us some of your favorite menu items.
I love the vegan chile relleno, and I'm not vegan, but sometimes I feel like when I eat them, I'm like, oh, I could totally be vegan until you put the brisket tacos in front of me, and then I can't. Okay. I also love the ensalada gabacha, which is a kale cabbage mix with some slivered almonds, currants, couple eggs over medium with a little bit of our brisket, avocado, and pickled onions, and a little tomato sauce. It's delicious, and it's a mustard honey vinaigrette.
Okay.
I love all of our drinks. They're all fresh pressed juices. So even our margaritas are made with fresh pressed juices. So we say that you can retox and detox at the same time.
Okay. I've heard about the agua fresca.
The agua frescas,
My colleague Timothy Halligan and his girlfriend have been to your restaurant and highly recommended it. So we look forward to visiting.
Everything's made from scratch. I'm really proud of that. Can't find any cans or jars.
Wow, excellent. So, the question then, sort of like when we have our conversation with civic leaders or on the political side, we say, why serve? Why Why go into elected office? So, given all the challenges of the restaurant industry and all the vagaries of COVID, why do it? So, with that, what's next for you? And do you have any new ventures up your sleeves in the coming year or 2 or 3 or 5? Nora?
Well, prior to the pandemic, with all the changes in the restaurant industry that we noticed and were affected by, my husband had wanted for a long time to do just a takeout place, but he's like, but I'm a one-man show. So, he's in there all the time. We're doing just like you are. We're cooking things from scratch, recipes, bookkeeping, ordering. So it's really hard to, when you're so engaged in your business, to branch out and do something else unless you have a team with you that wants to get involved. But when the pandemic first hit, he just said, in case we don't make it, we've got to have a takeout place, because we already knew that our takeout, even though we're kind of, fine dining, our takeout was getting bigger and bigger over the past 5-6 years. Not only with the delivery services, but with people picking up. That's why we incorporated family meals that were reduced price, things like that. And so he just went for it, and Greek Eats, which is located 8236 West 3rd Street, will be opening within the next month, and we will have, this is the first time I've said it out loud in public, and we'll be open our takeout place, which is not too far away, on 3rd Street near La Jolla. So.
Okay, so that 3rd Los Angeles area.
Yeah, a little bit further east, yeah.
Okay, near Fairfax then. Wow,
Yeah.
Unbelievable,
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so we're excited for that.
Give us the name of it again.
It's called Greek Eats.
Greek Eats.
Yeah,
Opening.
we were trying to decide whether it should be another Le Petit Greek, because his brother, when he left the restaurant business, he has Le Petit Greek Santorini, which is a little boutique hotel there, which is lovely, and a lot of the customers go there, which is fun.
Wonderful.
To have them come back and we share, about it. They've met like family members there. Oh, I met your aunt, and when my husband's parents were alive, I met your father there. But having the little takeout place. When we went Larchmont, obviously Larchmont's starting to pick up again, so we're happy about that.
Yeah.
But we know that it'd be good for the community, and we love that neighborhood.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to visiting Greek Eats on
you.
3rd Street at some point soon. Claire, I'm not going to even ask you what's next for you already, but I guess share with us what's next for you.
So let me take it back to why serve. I love feeding people. I love making people happy. You had mentioned all the different occasions that have been celebrated at your restaurant, Nora. And every time someone comes in for their birthday, or we have a lot of rehearsal dinners, or even like wedding receptions, and I'm just so touched, like, oh my gosh, you're celebrating that here? Really?
That's wonderful.
So I love hosting. I'm a hostess at heart. I love hosting people at my home. I love having people over. I love seeing them gather and enjoy. So that's why I continue to serve. It makes me happy. It makes me happy to see other people happy. And what's next for me? Honestly, my benchmark is Rick and Larry, CPK. I'm doing what they did.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, we look forward to seeing a PochaLA over on the Larchmont area.
Yes.
Yeah,
You will.
come on over.
Come on over. Come on
You
over.
will.
Robert?
Well, I'm retired now from the day-to-day business, but my son is a chef and working his way up, so I look forward to maybe someday opening a place with him.
Oh, excellent. We look forward to that.
And I have I'm a musician, and I have an independent record label, Prize Fight Records.
Okay.
And I've been working lately with the band Fox Trails. And I'm also a visual artist, so I do those things now. But so
you may be retired, but you're still busy.
And I'm around the restaurants, and I love my community.
Yeah.
In Venice, so it's a good life.
Well, I like that. It's a good life. We like that.
I'm looking forward to that life.
Yeah. That's a great positive ending. But we're not finished yet, because we have to conclude with our lightning round, and it's an opportunity for us to get to know our guests through the lens of their Los Angeles. But it's also great for our listeners, and I'm so grateful that we now have downloads in 35 countries. So I appreciate that. So share with us an inside look at your Los Angeles. Are you ready?
Yes.
These are quick.
It's like a game show.
Okay.
I'll take European cities.
These are quick. European cities. Favorite place to take a sip, and that can be a coffee, cup of tea, or a cocktail. Claire.
Perch, downtown Los Angeles.
Perch, downtown Los Angeles on Hill Street. Nora.
If I'm going to go coffee, it's Groundworks. Originally, they started in Venice, Robert, and they are, Southern California. The best coffee. We serve it in the restaurant. I love it. If I'm going to go drink, I like any rooftop bar. I'd say Broken Shaker.
Okay.
Downtown. Yeah.
Excellent. Mr. Schwan.
I'll go with a cocktail at the Casa del Mar in Santa Monica.
Oh, nice.
Overlooking the ocean.
You are fancy.
I'm fancy.
Okay, that's a cocktail. What else do you want to add? You want to add anything else to that?
There's a little takeaway place next to Jelena, GTA.
Okay.
And I love strolling over there in the morning and getting a coffee and standing out on the sidewalk. And I usually run into any number of locals.
Yeah. Give us a favorite place to take a visitor from out of town, Nora.
La Brea Tar Pits. It's so uniquely LA, and it's such an easy museum to get around, and the walking of the park, and then LACMA's all there. But absolutely La Brea Tar Pits. Everybody comes to visit me, goes to the Tar Pits.
First time that's been mentioned. Unbelievable. Claire.
Casa Sanchez, Culver City. It's a supper club, live mariachi.
Oh, wonderful. Robert.
I have to go with anywhere on the coast of California. I think the coast of California from San Diego all the way to San Francisco is just a great national treasure.
Yeah, unbelievable. That's great.
So
open space is so important to California and Los Angeles in particular. Give us a favorite park or favorite hike. Claire.
Palos Verdes along the coast up in South Bay. I'm from there.
I love hiking too, but I'm going to say my favorite park is this tiny little park just south of my neighborhood called Harold Henry Park. It was originally owned by, it was the property of, these people had owned it and, they had given it up, and it's really tiny. Okay. But because it was their original property and it's so old, it's got huge eucalyptus and pine trees, like just big, massive trees. What
community is this in?
It's just, I don't know what it would be. It's just south of Wilshire. Okay. Off of like Lucerne and Plymouth. So it's just south of Windsor Square. Yeah. And it's just a tiny little sweet park with just lots of beautiful trees and a nice relaxing vibe.
Robert, give us a favorite hike or park.
Will Rogers Park.
Gotcha.
And you can go, you can head up and go as far as you want. You can walk all the way up the Backbone Trail and see, to the other side. Yeah. I mean, it's...
Okay. So give us a hidden gem. We love hidden gems. Nora.
Hidden gems are hard because I think business and I think nature and I think business and nature. So I'd say a hidden gem is the community of Brookside, which is also just south of us, because literally there's a brook that goes through like Longwood Street, which a lot of these homes have like a live creek. And if you're walking in the neighborhood, you can stop and you can hear the creek. And I was like, that's great that there's like this creek in people's backyard.
I never knew
right
that.
Off of like Wilshire. So I love that little neighborhood and walking through there, listening to the creek, that would be my...
Claire, give us a hidden gem.
I don't know if it's hidden, but I love the Terranea. I'm from the South Bay, so just overlooking the cliffs. It's also in Palos Verdes. Okay. I'm not sure how hidden it is, but not many people venture out that way that are in LA. It seems like it's so far away from the freeway.
Exactly.
So people don't tend to go over there, and there's
Too far off the track.
And there's not a lot going on around it.
Yeah. Robert, you have a hidden gem for us?
Yeah, I would say the Del Monte Speakeasy, the townhouse on Windward in Venice. And any given night, you go down in the basement there, and they have some of the best music
Okay, that's
you could hear anywhere in the world.
We always lead our lightning round with a favorite restaurant because we always love eating and we know the importance of that. So in this case, it's the last lightning round question. So give us a favorite restaurant, not your own. Where are you eating these days?
Can I give a couple?
You get two max.
Two max?
You get two.
My goodness.
Give us two. Give us two, Nora.
Well, I mean, listen, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, the restaurants right alongside us, which are Village Pizzeria and Mariah Sushi. But can I sneak one more in there?
Please.
This is my secret. So now you're going to know my secret. I love Doubting Thomas off of Temple. It's kind of like north of Koreatown, south of Silver Lake. They do breakfast and lunch. It's superb, and it's kind of like there's nothing else really around. It's more neighborhood, and it's a wonderful, wonderful place for breakfast and lunch.
I have not heard that one.
Yeah.
Claire, give us a favorite restaurant or two.
So you're going to laugh. It's Jelena, and my Yelp profile picture is from 13 years ago. It's me with a glass of red wine, my baby, who is now 13, in his stroller, and that is still my Yelp profile picture.
Oh, wow.
That means a lot.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So when I found out you were here, I was like, oh my gosh, you're like a
so
celebrity
great.
to me. I'm a little starstruck.
Well, I'm a small part of that great operation, but thank you. On behalf of all of us, thank you.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
other than Jelena, give us a favorite restaurant.
Oh, it's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple restaurant. Bloom. It was around the corner from where I used to live on Pico.
On Pico, I used to love that spot.
Bloom.
Yes, absolutely.
It's just so...
Love Bloom, yes. Okay.
It's just easy. Perfect.
Okay. Mr. Schwan, favorite restaurant or two?
I'm just going to go with a couple places I was at recently because there's so many.
Yeah.
There's so many. I
LA's
hate
got some great
leaving
choices coming
anyone out.
Yeah.
But a place I used to run years ago, it was 72 Market Street, an infamous restaurant, just reopened with two young gentlemen, Nick and Arwan, and they call it Market. And I think they've done a great job, really great vibe, great place. And a little place on Rose now called Wallflower.
Yep, I've heard of it.
And it's just a great vibe, great place, really fun.
Excellent.
Can I throw in one more?
Absolutely.
Alta Adams.
Absolutely. We love the deviled eggs on the menu there.
Alta Adams.
Love that.
Yeah.
So this has been a great dialogue, and we really appreciate all of your time and appreciate your service to community. Thank you for joining us today. As we say on Civitas LA, however, the guest gets the final word. So give us a final thought or call to action, Nora.
Continue to support your local restaurants and your local businesses as well. We still need you, and we love and appreciate you.
Claire, do we have a final thought or call to action?
Gratitude. Just gratitude for the support, for the love, and for carrying us through these unprecedented times. Just nothing but love and gratitude.
Wonderful. Thank you. Robert, final thought, please.
Let's take care of each other and be of service in our communities.
Wonderful closing thought. Claire, Nora, Robert, thank you all for joining us today. You all play such a key role in bringing communities together, but also bringing a bit of joy to one's day or one's week. So I want to personally thank you all, and I certainly look forward to visiting all of you in the coming days or weeks or months, because I simply do not have the capacity or the ability to cook. So, and to our audience, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this program, and we hope you'll join us in 2 weeks as we engage with another great civic leader from our region. And until we meet again, stay strong and get involved. To learn more about Civitas LA and to share feedback on this program or recommend a future program, please visit us at www.civitasla.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook at Civitas LA, on Instagram at Civitas_LA, and on Twitter at Civitas_LA.